guys, welcome to Piano Rogues. I'm Aire.
And I'm Aire.
Today we are talking about not pianos,
Ocarinas!
and our apparent obsession with them. And this is our collection.
Hope you enjoy!
Guys, I think we have a problem.
We're talking about our obsession with ocarinas, how we came by all of these, and how you can get your collection started.
If you want to learn a little more information about ocarinas in general, we do already have a video on that. Stay tuned to find out which ocarina we recommend as a starter. The ocarina that began this whole obsession, I have named this ocarina Aire.
I don't name mine.
Ocarinas need names. They're like guitars. The thing that's special about this ocarina is that it has 3 chambers in it. That's why it has so many holes.
Which means it has holes for each chamber.
Yes. Having 3 chambers gives it a very extended range, which means it can play lots of extra notes.
Where did you get it from?
From St. Louis Ocarina. It was a gift for my graduation from music school.
St. Louis Ocarina has 3-chamber ocarinas still, but not this one anymore.
We looked on their website and we couldn't really find one that was exactly like this. They do have some double-chamber ocarinas that look a lot like this, but they don't sound quite the same.
Yes, it is very important if you buy ocarinas to always get a sound sample of that line before you purchase it.
Some ocarinas are meant for looks, be nice on a shelf, and others are intended to look nice but sound amazing.
If you're looking to buy a multi-chamber ocarina, it's going to run you about
$300 to $400 if you want one that has a really nice sound. Here's a little sound sample of what this one sounds like. There you go.
Yay!
Got my high chambers, and here's what the lower chambers sound like. So you can hear it has a lot of range.
What's the lowest note? What's the highest note? Ah!
You asked for it.
Oh, just wait!
So this one's lowest note on its lowest chamber is actually the same as this one's lowest note, because this one's lowest chamber is a tenor and this is a tenor.
And this is a tenor.
Yep. Pros
And cons.
This one is fantastic at playing pieces that have a huge range of notes that go from really low to really high. Great for that. But one of the difficulties of playing on a multi-chamber ocarina is that you need to practice moving swiftly from chamber to chamber.
Without making it mush.
Yep. Fingering for various notes in one chamber will not be the same as the fingering for that same variety of notes in another chamber. So you actually have to learn different fingerings depending on which chamber you're playing on.
So not a beginner piece.
No, I would say that this is not really a beginner's ocarina.
Unless you're super determined and aren't going to give up.
Or unless, like I was, you're already an experienced musician who has played other woodwind instruments.
Not a first musician.
Yeah, this is probably not a first instrument for a beginning musician.
So the next ocarina that we got was... Oh, really? I thought it was the other way around.
Technically, these two kind of came together.
Ah.
Yeah. This one
Is also special.
again, it's multi-chamber. It has 2 different chambers to blow into, but you're intended to play both at once so that you can create
Harmonies.
exactly more than one note at a time. I also gave this one a name. This is Belladonna because of the double chambers. So this one is Bella and this one is Donna.
Still don't name mine.
She should. This is the Songbird Harmony Double Ocarina in C.
And it runs about
$124.
a little cheaper than that one.
Yep, but a much more difficult option to learn to play. You can get some pretty interesting sounds with this guy. This is actually very difficult to play, keeping track of the fingering for one side and the fingering for the other side, even though they follow the same patterns.
You're not going to be necessarily playing the exact same note.
Exactly. What she
Because you
said.
want a harmony, not a...
Not the same thing. In fact,
Oh, no.
I can show them real quick. So here's what happens when you try to play the same note. Woo! Ha! It's supposed to overlap right there and play the same note. It's not quite the same. Intonation is an issue sometimes.
One of the reasons you want to buy a better quality multi-chambered ocarina is because one of the hardest things is keeping the chambers in tune to each other.
Exactly. As you make the transfer from one chamber to the next chamber, sometimes
There's a little difference.
Yeah, like one chamber's notes will be a little bit higher. All of them will be tuned a little higher than the chamber that came before it. And that makes it so that there's too much of a difference between the highest note of the lower chamber and the lowest note of the higher chamber. It's like too big of a gap. Bigger than it should be, and it sounds funky. You end up having to adjust for the difference by adjusting your airflow, and that is actually really challenging to do for a beginning ocarinas.
Yeah.
I just made up a word. I don't know if ocarinist is a word, but
It
it
is
is now.
now.
Belladonna's range is 2 octaves. We have the lower octave on the bigger chamber, and we have a higher octave on the little chamber. And as I mentioned earlier, there's that one note in the middle where they overlap. The highest note on this one is supposed to be the same as the lowest note on this one.
Definitely the same.
Oh yeah, very, very same.
Pros.
And con. One of the pros for this one, it can play more than one note at a time. It is in fact designed to do that, so you can harmonize with your own music.
Without having to record twice or have a friend.
Yes, exactly.
This one does not need friends.
Oh dear. However, that is also one of the cons because that means you need to learn to play 2 separate things at the same time.
Independent hands.
Yes. Granted, you could always just choose to treat it like, say, my triple here, and only play 1 chamber at a time and just have your 2 octave range. That would be fine. You could choose to do that.
And that might be a good way to start learning.
On this ocarina. Cons. Intonation is a little bit of an issue moving from chamber to chamber, as earlier demonstrated. The good thing is the pressure needed is pretty much equal for the 2 chambers. Otherwise, it would be really impossible to play this ocarina as intended, because I can't control the amount of air going into one chamber and the other chamber at the same time.
Well, about that. We did figure out a way, but it's a challenge.
By the way, if you're curious and you want to go find out more about that, you can always check out this video.
We have Ocarina number 3.
So guys, this one is named for something from the Star Wars universe because it's supposed to be shaped like one of the Kyber crystals. But the name of this ocarina on the St. Louis Ocarina website is a Dagon crystal. I think it's a Dagon crystal. I've never heard the word pronounced before. These are supposed to be Kyber crystals that come from the Adega system, if that matters to you.
The only system I know.
Matters to me, because I love Star Wars. And of course, as is my custom, I've named this one Tulia.
Still don't name mine.
What makes this one different and interesting is, unlike the one from earlier, instead of holding it kind of off to the side and blowing into it that way, all of the holes are straight up and down, and you blow into it straight on, more like a recorder.
They're called inline ocarinas for some reason.
Because all the holes are in line.
What does this one sound like? It's got a warm tone.
Yeah, it's a little bit breathier than Aoife, and it's a slightly more intimate sound, I think. It's a little
Less loud.
Yeah. But this one is only 1 chamber. This is a single chamber tenor ocarina, so it has a much smaller range. It's still a sizable range with an octave plus a 6th.
Price!
So this ocarina goes for $55 on St. Louis Ocarina's website.
Which is really good.
For the sound quality, for the appearance, $55 is a very nice price for this tenor ocarina. Pros
and cons.
This one is nice if it feels more natural for you to blow straight into your instrument and have your hands right next to each other like this. One thing that makes this one a little bit easier than a triple chamber ocarina is that there is only 1 chamber to worry about. There's no trying to skip between chambers to get to your different notes.
What about breath control?
Breath control is not so much of an issue for this one. You just want to keep it fairly steady. One of the cons for this one's particular design is that the small holes, itty bitty little guys that you need for some of the lower notes, they are placed a little bit awkwardly. Like, to scoop my fingers in, it feels way more natural to go like that than to go like that. That makes it a little bit harder to get the lower notes on this particular inline ocarina. I can't speak for all inline ocarinas everywhere.
Because this is the only one we have.
Yeah.
That brings us to me. My first ocarina was a hunk of ocarina. So what happened was we got an ocarina, but see these 2 little holes? You have to be able to cover the holes at the same time, and there was a ridge between, and I could not, with my skinny little finger, cover both holes. So that would have limited what I could do with the ocarina.
Which was very sad.
I wanted something low. And as it turns out, The smaller you go, the higher you go. The lower you go, the bigger you get. So this guy is not supposed to be a beginner ocarina, but
We all know Aire, she's such an underachiever.
I don't let things like that stand in my way. This one's lowest note.
It sounds like an owl.
Yes, I've tried to make owl sounds with it. Highest note. It is from St. Louis Ocarina.
It is a 12-hole C major bass ocarina called the Passacaglia.
Price. So this guy is somewhat expensive. This is a $200 ocarina. Pros?
And cons.
Pros? I like low notes.
And you can make beautiful low notes on that thing.
It's a 12-hole ocarina. It works just like a 12-hole ocarina.
You don't have to relearn your fingerings to play this ocarina.
Yeah. You would just need to learn the difference in breath support.
Cons.
So the biggest issue with this one, I have found that the way to make notes with ocarina has to do with the pressure inside the ocarina. And this one, I can get...
Oh, that's a significantly different pitch depending on how hard you blow on it.
Yeah. With this one, there's a lot of remembering the pressure you need. And what happens is there's a change in pressure at this note. So it's just a smidge in flat unless I add a little pressure to that one. So these two are about the same air pressure. Then we jump to these two, the same air pressure. And then this one, and this one. And then as you go up, all the rest need more pressure as you go. So trying to remember the exact pressure, like if I hop from A to C, I am likely to have C out of tune.
Okay.
Because I will be in too much air on A.
It sounds like you're not using enough air.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it gets really airy if you don't continue to pressurize it properly.
That's something interesting to know. A bass ocarina like what she has requires a lot of breath control.
If the reward is worth it and you're willing to put in the practice, a bass is fine. It's going to be a little bit stronger learning curve between the breath control and the fingering and the pieces you're learning.
That ocarina is very heavy.
It is. And when you're playing the highest notes, you have to hold it with just your pinky and thumb. And notice, I am semi-comfortable with this because I have practiced. But when I first started learning to play this one, I was practicing in bed.
Because she was afraid of dropping it.
Yeah. Also, when I'm trying to practice, my fingers start hurting too much. So sometimes I'll use a table or my knees if I'm like sitting on the bed or something to practice so I don't have to hold it up constantly because it gets heavy after a while. Sometimes I will lay down and practice so that all the weight is on me instead of on my fingers.
And another thing that you've commented on to me with this one is the texture.
Oh yeah. I have a callus on my lip because this rough texture is on the mouthpiece. So this individual ocarina, it has a really rough, and so when you're putting your mouth on it practice, it's gonna leave a callus and rub your lips raw.
I believe the next ocarinas were, again, a pair that kind of came at the same time, right? So these are Teacarinas.
So they look like a teacup, but if you look closer, we have our hole that splits the air to make the whistle sound, and our holes for the fingers. And the important one, a hole for your to blow into.
Technically, they're all important.
Well, if you don't blow
All the
into
holes are important.
If you blow into it, nothing comes out.
These came from St. Louis Ocarina, and on sale, they are $18.
Normally,
they're $22.
St. Louis Ocarina often has sales, and so we recommend
Check their website often. We do.
We definitely aren't considering getting more.
I don't have covetous plans for more ocarinas.
Lowest note. Teacarina. Not going to be as high a sound quality.
I mean, it still sounds nice.
It sounds nicer than I expected it to sound,
You
really.
can play pretty little tunes on it.
It's a fun piece.
Yeah.
She's more used to these, so this is a whole new fingering for her to learn.
Yeah, I don't know how to play anything on these yet because fingering is extremely different. It's only 4 holes instead of at least 12. Totally different.
You do different fingers than
Do
me. I use first and second. Two different methods of holding the ocarina.
I'm enjoying using these because I can stabilize up here with these.
I can fit my finger in a big hole. So, pros
and cons.
In the pro category, breath control is less of an issue with this ocarina. I have found these to be easier to learn new songs and to try to figure out pieces by ear.
And she thinks it's probably because rather than the notes moving in a linear fashion where you lift each finger up in succession like this, they move in skips as you lift your fingers. So for her, it's easier for her ears to play off of that. Cons, I would say that it's just as much the other side of the coin. If you are somebody who thinks better in a linear fashion, like me, then learning on something like this might not be so easy for you. So one of the issues with ocarinas with fewer holes, like a 6-hole or a 4-hole ocarina, is that in order to get half steps between your notes, you have to cover just half of a hole at times. And sometimes that is very, very difficult. Like in particular, look at how itty bitty that little hole is. Okay? If we're trying to cover just half that itty bitty little hole, that's gonna take a lot of practice, guys. I would say that's definitely a con on that one if it's a beginner for you.
But a lot of beginners aren't going to be doing as much with half steps.
A valid point.
The last one that came with that purchase, I got this one, this one, this one, and this one. So, little guy. I love this guy. I love this little guy because he's really nice to fiddle with. Don't stop. This little guy was on sale when I was buying these.
I remember getting a text from her telling me that I was a problem.
Yes, it was too cute.
I had created this new obsession for her.
I could not pass it up, so this is the beauty of this little ocarina. It can go with you wherever you want because it fits on a pendant and it's surprisingly durable. It's pretty thick. See? Hold this end, and it's a 6-hole ocarina. For being so small, I didn't expect it to have 6 holes, but it has 2 secret holes. Lowest note. Highest note. A very good whistle to get attention. But you can play pieces on it. Price. This guy is the same price as the Teacarinas. 22 normal, 18 on sale. Oh no, it was actually on sale for 16. I remember that. So $16, look at how cute it is. I couldn't.
Guys, she got 4 ocarinas at once and I'm the problem.
Isn't that one? I got you one.
That's the excuse.
Difficulty. Not too difficult to play. If you put too much air into it, it doesn't work.
Okay.
You have a little bit of breath control with it, but just don't get too excited when you play. Pros.
And cons.
Pros. It travels really well because it can just go with you. I often will put it in my shirt so that it doesn't clomber and bounce against things and get cracked or chipped or anything like that. Actually, we got boxes of music donated to us because I played this at a party and someone went, "Is that an ocarina?" And it started a conversation.
So, conversation starter.
Conversation starter. Cons.
Wearing a big pendant might not be your style, but
it makes up for it by it makes music. Only 6 holes. I don't know what you would do with more holes.
There's room for the holes right there.
I guess it could be
8.
It could be 8. Missed opportunity. It's really high. It annoys people. If you're just gonna tootle with it, it's not going to be something people are gonna tolerate very long.
Look, it's a tiny ocarina. It's so cute. Look how cute it is.
it is indeed adorable.
This one is unique among all of our ocarinas. It is in the key of E.
Yes.
All of those are in the key of C. But this little guy is in E, which means this note on that ocarina is the same as the lowest note on this ocarina. Which means this one's higher.
Oh, good.
Lowest note.
Oh, that's fine. Lowest note is fine.
Highest note. That hurt. Suffice it to say, I don't play the highest notes on these very often. This guy is the 6-hole E major mini ocarina. This one came from, guess where? St. Louis Ocarina. Every one of these came from St. Louis Ocarina except for one. We like St. Louis Ocarina.
Unfortunately, this one is not currently available on St. Louis Ocarina's website.
Because they are in the process of moving. So their stock changes. Cost! Guess what? It cost the same as this one, and that one, and that one.
$18 on sale, $22
Normal.
Yeah. Difficulty.
I would say that this one is slightly more difficult than this one. I think this one is slightly more difficult than this one because it starts in the key of E, and most people when they first learn music start with C.
Yeah.
You move through the fingers the same, but the notes are not the same.
So the finger combination that produces an E, this one's lowest note, is the finger combination that produces a C on this one's lowest note.
So the notes have moved. It's gonna be a challenge learning this little guy after that one. Last
but not least.
well, I was gonna say it all dramatic. My Aria. And I love it. I actually bought this one intentionally. I went to the website for the purpose of buying this kind of ocarina.
Others were accidents.
That one I intentionally went to the website to buy. And I came out with this one. I picked this one because I wanted something that had the same fingering as my bass ocarina that I could practice with that wasn't so heavy on my hands. And it has incredibly good sound quality for the price. This is the Aria Ocarina from St. Louis Ocarina.
This single chamber tenor ocarina runs for $79 regular price. On sale, it's $64.
A little pricier
than
that
this one.
But listen. Really pure tones without much breathy sound. So whereas this one maybe sounds a little more folk music and maybe airier, this one is very
Pure full-bodied
notes. It's louder. It is the loudest ocarina I have. Pros
and cons.
It is really high sound quality. It's got a lot of volume to it if you need to hear it over something like a piano. It sounds like it could fit in with an orchestra, and it's light and the fingers move in line. Cons.
It's a little more pricey than some of the other single chamber tenor options on St. Louis Ocarina's website. Another con is that you do have to adjust your breath support a little bit as you get into your higher notes on this
Not
ocarina.
as much as this one.
Yeah, that's just something to be aware of on pretty much all ocarinas.
This one doesn't have too many cons, and honestly, of all the ocarinas here, I would recommend as a first starter ocarina.
Yeah, absolutely. If you are someone interested in learning to play the ocarina, if this is going to be your first instrument, or if it's just your first ocarina, a single chamber tenor ocarina is an excellent, perfect choice. The only caveat that I might put on that is that if it is intended for a child, you may want to consider starting with a plastic tenor ocarina instead of one of these ceramic ocarinas.
Future video, we are going to be comparing this tenor ocarina to the normal starter ocarina that most people choose. Thanks for letting us steal your screens for a while. Stay rogue.